As do you hear them? Yeah? The birds, the morning singing birds of innocence behind the window. June, full June, middle of June. The lake, still pleasantly cold because there were some cold rains, but the sun very strong already. Transformation of the tennis player into the bard after the full moon, where he was hammering. Suddenly the moon started to wane, and there is no desire to hammer the round balls, the yellow balls, the little brothers of the white, huge moon ball stay in the boxes. And as always, I am occupied with a intricate idea which it is not easy to put into words. What are the images that keep returning to my inner gallery that ask for, let us say, explanation? Because we do not philosophize in a systematic way, like, making an outline of the being and the ego and the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the stars, society, communication, rules, morals. And so, as the old philosophers did, this has been all done. Cosmos, logic, mathematics, value, truth, implication. This has been systematically done already so many times. And the result, those professors who teach it are happy in their system. They get their tenures, but these are the only ones who really kind of are happy with it. And the rest of the world is sliding into a confusion and maybe a World War III and another item. It was also the feeling that the representation of a systematic, in a systematic way, a representation of the phenomenal experience is out of date for us. It is outlived the systematic philosophy also. Also music, in a way that it would be written down in script notes, and that it would be repeated. It is out of attraction for us, for me. Even melodies themselves, spontaneous melodies, when they repeat themselves more than, let us say, 3 times, out of spontaneously change into a different melody. Because as soon as the repetition becomes automatic, the ego starts to dissociate from the passive and surprise and pleasure of a sudden flow of vibrations, of vocals. So this is a big issue, the end of representation, mimesis, end of mimesis for us, and that doesn't have to be for everybody. Certainly it is not for young people that love to imitate somebody or something, to exercise their ability. They make it, they can learn scores of music from somebody whom I admire, and they repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. Young sportsmen repeat the backhanded forehand, and as I did in my puberty, fencing motions forever and ever, because the repetition is a necessary kind of stage of learning, of becoming a stabilized personality, growing a solid ego, even learning at school. Mathematics must be repeated forever and forever. In 7 times 7 is 49, 5 times 5 is 25. It has to be learned by heart, repetition. Even there can be an objection if it not would be, more creative, to see the 5 as a space, not as an abstract number, but as a space that grows. 1 space, 2nd space, 3rd space, 4th space, 5th space. Together they are the 25 space. When the spaces would be the same size. Okay. But also that had to be repeatedly imagined, let us say. But then, if we are honest, we must say that in the old age, that what we have mastered, we became the masters of repetition, loses life force. It is different for each individual when it occurs, this loss of the repetitive power of whatever you do. So this is one issue that is pressing and asks for expression. Another issue is the relative loss of motivation in a prosaic form. Discussions with friends that are prosaic, pragmatic, with philosopher friends who are that are discussions analytical, persuasive, argumentary, maybe sometimes moral. It all loses kind of the power of motivation. My soul starts to withdraw even if the intellect is repeating certain, well learned and absorbed rules or informations or meanings, interpretations, and so. But the soul withdraws and searches. The eyes, if it is outside, the eyes start to glide upwards to the trees that move the branches in the soft wind of full June, warm and beautiful. Why is this so? The life force that has been accumulated by my ancestors is waning if it is not replenished by the supra-individual life force of Mother Nature. What a sentence! Maybe it is felt in this way. There was a birthday 71. As always, I am intrigued with this number 70, 69, 68, 67, going down to 50, 49, 39, 29, 19, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there we are again. It was not easy to make a birthday cake with 71 candles. But I managed with Photoshop. Because the candles were logically all copies of one candle. As and I put them on a beautiful watery surface of a sea photograph on Crete, azure, blue, green. A chocolate cake with seawater dressing and 71 candles. Well, it's a total original birthday cake. But nevertheless, for the first time in my heroic, adventurous life, poetic and traveling a lot, sport every day until 71, I feel a kind of, exhaustion of those primeval powers of the body and of the analytical mind that was sharply polished. So many studies, so many books, so many analytical understandings and competing discussions. It suddenly is dull, gray, and without life force. So it may be argued with Nietzsche that it is a natural outcome of the physiology that is growing old and cannot replenish the energy so easily as it did in the decades before. Unfortunately, Nietzsche could not study it on himself because he didn't live to this high age in a conscious quality of his soul. Well, let us not become again carried away by some analytical notes. Let us stay and comment on what is really happening. So first we have this admiration for spontaneous variation of music, the vibration on the body, and then the natural forms now exert a fascinating power on me. Recently, I go to the forest because it is also strong sun and it's warm, and at the lake it's too hot and without the shade of the trees, and too many people are baking themselves there as in the some of the caves or shouting and they're just 10 minutes away from it, a beautiful forest with strangely high trees. I even read in a paper, local paper, that this forest is well known for very high trees. Conifers and the other kind, what are they called? The trees that have leaves that fall in autumn. Slim, gray, like snaky stems that rise like, I'm standing below it looking up. It is like, 50 meters going up and up and up, or 40 or 30, I don't know. And then it separates into more very strong branches, and then there are the crowns full of green leaves of all kinds. It's fresh June still, all kinds of shades of greens, softly moving in the breeze that is always, there up there in the crowns of the trees. And yet the ground of the forest is also completely green. New trees are growing, and in the distance the trees get smaller so that you have all kinds of spaces and shapes. And I love this way of staring into it and moving slowly so that I keep seeing a new combination, new perspective, new space, new relationships of the stems and the trees and the color and the sun. And wow, I'm so fascinated that recently I stayed there for 2 hours at one spot, turning around and staring mostly, up. Dude, I even had to excuse myself to several, or explain myself to several passers-by who come there with dogs, because the dogs were afraid. They couldn't go by because it was a narrow road, a forest track. And the dogs looked at me with suspicion because this man was not moving and was staring up high as if there was something important. So I told them, well, I'm a painter and photographer, and I admire these perspectives, how they are so rich in shapes, form, color. I cannot see enough of that, okay? That they understood. And they continued talking and talking. If they were a couple, they didn't look up. And they continued with their agenda. And the dogs also bravely walked or ran on the leash, following them, so they had a completely solid social kind of trinity. A couple and a dog humming, disappearing on this road, whereas the bard, mystic, the wise man of the forest, staring up and up. Well, I would not be against an experience where there would be a forest fairy. A train is passing by, so that you know. The forest fairy, that would, maybe stir also up, or maybe she would fly high in the crowns of the trees, or maybe it would be a kind of, what are they called? A nymph, or a Diana, a hunter, fairy huntress, would be striving through the forest. And actually I feel this yin quality of the leaves of the mother nature. I feel it somehow when I stir silently at the shapes of nature. Yes, and also it brings energy. It is important. The ego is dissolved. Beyond this forest, there are these martial fields of tennis courts, the 2 tennis clubs where I used to play, even until the beginning of junior, like a madman, frequently trying to press the meaning, the heroic kind of life out of the matches and the balls and the kind of loud friendship with other warriors who are mostly younger. But I returned home like, exhausted. Sometimes I didn't even have power, alas, to take a shower, so I just jumped into a lake to cool myself. And then I ate dinner, a late supper, and I didn't feel any desire to create, to read something poetic or deep, or to play music, or to... So I mostly watched the media swamp. Like I said, well, I have to be informed what is going on in the political situation which is terrible now. And then I fell asleep. And in the morning, I felt so empty. So I wrote to my friends, now the time has come that I have to recover my soul and the body from the warrior role on the tennis court. I'm withdrawing now. Please do not write to me and ask me what time shall we meet. I will stare at the trees and the forest instead of running on the red field and hitting the balls, which then I analyzed according to my philosophy, biocentric phenomenology, that hitting a ball is an act of willpower that is shooting out of the ego, and it reduces the vision, reduces actually the potential of the soul field. When we accept Rupert Sheldrake's insight and practical, he proved this in practical experiments, that the soul is a morphogenetic field stretching far beyond the body, then it is a field. It is not a line. It is not a shot of intentional consciousness. Then when we accept again Husserlian description of consciousness, that it is always intentional, intended on something, okay? Because English does not have a kind of Anglo-Saxon root for this. Awareness would be maybe, but German has a Germanic root for this word for consciousness, which is Bewusstsein. And one of the pleasures I have now, when I don't run like a crazy guy around and stay on my mattress and play music or read books, that I don't even read the content. I don't need to know the content. I already know the content. Even in reading a text, I have this desire to be surprised, as if I was staring into the crowns, into the tops of the trees in the forest, by slowly turning, changing the perspective. I'm always seeing a new vision, and this is what is creative for me, and this is what gives the soul field the chance to extend and merge with the soul field of the forest. You see, I'm turning around, jumping, circling around a certain main issue from various perspectives. That it is one is leading to the other, then returning back, and so on. This is this kind of circling and digression and returning back, which is natural if you walk in the forest. But if you are on the tennis field, I will return to the text, which everything is analogous. If you, as I feel, you reach a certain domain change in your soul, in your inner world, there is a regime change. Some forces have invaded you and are performing a regime change, a paradigm change. As one is in the older age, change of the hero into the bard. So there, in all what he does, what he experiences, this is to be felt, and so he turns after some time. It takes always some time before it is understood or can be described. Yeah, when it starts, and I must confess that it started at least already 2 years ago. The kind of first moments of suddenly losing initiative. As old people, as I've been working as a physiotherapist for quite a long time, I also passed some old people's houses. I was younger at the time, senior houses, and I tried to motivate these people, to do their exercises as physiotherapists. And then I felt it's bullshit. They was paradoxical until I understand it is all making money now. The management, the doctors, and so they use the patients to make money simply. And so there are prescriptions now going on. And so if you have a 90-year-old lady, she has some, tension in the elbow, there is some spasmic tension, she cannot stretch her arm now. And I come to her, I hold her and touch her arm and make a massage and say, well, we have to stretch this arm because when you die, it will be easier to put you into the coffin. And then she laughs when she's intelligent, and I say, well then, I think it is not so important. You are old, you have experienced a lot in your life, what we can never experience because the time is moving forward. Tell me, what was the best time of your life? Describe it to me. Show me the images. And we spent the whole therapy session in talking while I was holding her and trying to pretend that I'm stretching the elbow, which was very popular among the old people. They could finally talk about the young, beautiful, powerful days, and I encouraged them, and they described to me so many details, and they were surprised that they even saw the weather, the color of those beautiful days. And they're talking about meeting a girlfriend or boyfriend and dancing, and then the day of the marriage, what was the weather and what the horses. There were no cars, it was after the war, so they were going with the horse's carriage to the church. There were no flowers to buy, so the future husband has stopped and has broken the fresh branches of a blossoming, because it was in May, cherry trees, and they had this kind of, and there was this ceremony, and there was then eating in a local restaurant somewhere in the Bavarian Alps. And then they went on a little boat to the lake for a kind of romantic adventure, short adventure after the lunch. And there was a rain, and there was a rainbow, and all these details the lady started to pour out of her old soul, and enjoyed it very much now. So that was a paradigm change also. And I told them, and I had a vision, intuition, that when you really die, when you feel that's the end, then you withdraw. Actually, you don't discuss it as a program. The harpies maybe the people who wait for your death because there will be some consequences, heritage, and maybe also but you don't care anymore. So you should withdraw into such a mandala of that you have created before that in the last years of your old age, high age life, as an image mandala, emotion and image mandala of your best days. And I told them that we do not know actually what happens when you die. Maybe if you keep this image flow and emotion flow to the very last moment, as so long as you can, before your soul is turned off, or the body is turned off, the bodily functions are turned off, and then you are proclaimed dead, maybe your soul continues. Because soul is separated from the body in death, maybe, and in any case can stretch very far away from the body. So, believe it or not, it is a possibility. It is better to go into a world you like. You constitute, you invent, you describe in all details this landscape and the personal that is there, okay, your husband, your relatives, and birds and horses and grasses and trees and cherry trees and rainbow, and you repeat it and repeat it. And I was asking for the continuity, because you see, phenomenal experience is continuous. You look up into the forest and turn your head slowly, or better, you turn your feet and you keep the head in the same position, because it is a more smooth, transition from one image to the other. So phenomenal experience in any case is always fluent, continuous. In opposition to that, cognition, acts of cognition, at least in the description of biocentric phenomenology, is one act that is a shot of willpower that is like a lightning, and it cuts through the field of perception, when it is sharply perceiving objects, immediately separates two sides of this conscious beam of attention into the target. Subject remains and the object they're created at the same time now. And then a jump to another object. And if it is in a realm of thinking, then it is similarly sharply cutting concepts that are strictly defined out of the fluid field of experience. So I was stressing for them not to think on it in words and memories and in values that it was the best day, but to see it really as a film, as a scene there inside. And for that you need the continuity from the horses to the arms of the future husband who is guiding the horses, then stopping, then raising his arms to the cherry tree, breaking down the branches, sitting down, giving her, and in the moment he gives it to her, see his face, color, eyes, smile, shape, and then you suddenly ask, and what did he had on? Did he, so that the face is not dangling in a kind of haze of abstract surroundings. No. What was the shirt? What was the suit, sacco, and what was the jacket? And was the every detail. And that, I can assure you, can last for hours and hours. Every day you do this exercise. And if you are an old age person, on the perspective you will die in this location, then what else could you do? You have all the time. And if you can nourish the dream that you will slide into the oblivion inside a kind of mandala, a living space of emotion, colors, and visions that you love so much. So what else? And this is what I practice. Well, then we have one of these issues of the continuity and of the fluidity of phenomenal experience, which, according to biocentric phenomenology, is the only actual realm and domain on this planet. The cognition is a parasitic function that changes the soul field into a kind of series of individual acts of consciousness, cognitive acts, perception, sharply defined edges separated from the background, conceptual thinking, sharply defined, exactly defined concepts related not by spatial continuous nearness as phenomena are, but by logical relationships that themselves are simply arrows in some dictionary. In a dictionary, words are related to words, the meanings are related to meanings, and you could imagine that there would be, like little lines connecting them in the space of this abstract vocabulary. Whereas in the phenomenal experience, it is the spatial nearness of the branches to the hand, of the horses to the road, of the road to the forest, of the forest to the lake, and so on. And specific horses, individual horses, and the scene will never repeat it as it is happening. So this led me to two other realms. I can explain this, illustrate this. This is the tennis and reading. In tennis, I started to notice like 2-3 years ago that I don't tolerate anymore this narrowing of attention to the ball. So I prefer to play with somebody who just wants to play. Nice slow balls, because I play also a left hand and I change the racket to the right hand, and this change of perspective and body feeling and spatial experience is pleasant I noticed, for example, that when I play as I'm supposed to be a right-hander, and when I play a left hand, slow, nice balls, I play a better forehand. Because as a young boy, I spent like 15 years in fencing. The right hand, I'm fencing with the right hand. The left hand is, lifted, so that the space between the left hand and the right hand, which is stretched forward with the foil, it became kind of very intimate for me. I could measure, not measure, I could feel the change in the spatial location of my left hand and the right hand very deeply for a long time. And if you play tennis with left hand, then your forehand is similar. Right hand stretches forward in the style as we play the style of Roger Federer, is kind of testing the ground and the space and is kind of stretched towards the incoming ball. The left hand goes backwards and then wow, and I hit it better. So nevertheless, this changing left hand and right hand is a nice, pleasurable, phenomenal change of spatial perception and body motion perception. Also, I like to look at the trees and the wind and the smell of the wind, the whole scene. So I cannot concentrate like a madman on as Boris Becker has said, a professional tennis player, you have to see every hair of the incoming ball as it is approaching you over the net. Impossible for me. It became as a sign of, refusing to repeat the warrior act of, concentrating only on one target, which is again an intentional consciousness, which depletes. One day it depletes the power, the energy of the body, if it is not rejuvenated and replenished by merging the soul field with the only source of supra-individual life power, which are the elements: wind, sky, sun, trees, water, and so on. So I would prefer the tennis club to be a kind of a beautiful place where we meet under beautiful open sky and some trees around for a ritual dance of replenishing the life power. But nobody cares. No? My friends, they want to hit it into the corner and long line. So I stopped running after that and told them, I don't want this. It does not attract me anymore. Now to the reading. Regime change in reading. A philosopher realizes that there are very few books that it is worthwhile to read once more or for the third time, whatever, and you read them and then you know already what's going to come. You know the analytical meaning and you have interpreted it several times, but you suddenly realize that if you read a so-called close reading, that you do not rush over the lines, that you do not presuppose the meaning, that you let the eyes glide from one word to the other. The best is mother tongue. If you are also slightly aware of the linguistic structure of the language, that you have phonemes, the smallest sounds that can change meaning, morphemes that are the smallest meaning carrying units, morphemes. Then you have words. The words also have grammatical variations that are banded somehow by grammatical rules so that they can carry in themselves indication of, the place in the logical structure of the sentence, so that these verbs have a time changes, they express the time changes and person changes in the shape of the word, who is doing that and when it was done, future, past, present, and substantives, nouns, have declinations, grammatical cases, with whom, for whom, and so on. English naturally is quite poor in this, but German, for example, extremely rich. So you let and Czech, my mother tongue, also extremely rich, maybe even richer than German. So I read Czech texts or German texts. I already know. And the best is I read the Czech, a congenial translation of Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil in Czech language, which is called Mimo dobro a zlo. Incidentally translated by a colleague of mine from the Charles University, where I was studied in the 1970s. What is it? What happens? The eyes are gliding from one morpheme to the other, from one meaning unit to the other, and from one kind of grammatical declination or conjugation, suffix or prefix, and you see, and it turns back and it goes there, and then the soul starts to invent variations. You have prescription, description. How does it change the meaning when you change the prefix from pre to D? Okay. Underground, above ground, beyond ground. You can even invent your artificial prefixes and suffixes. And so you play with this close reading, and the text starts to grow very individual meaning. Okay, that is it. You have it. Refusing to get quickly to the meaning, straightforward, refusing to get quickly to the point in tennis by hitting the ball, controlled consciousness to a certain place, reduction of the perception of the whole tennis field, guiding the patients to create a mandala for the last days, stressing everywhere the continuity, the fluidity of phenomenal experience. And by chance yesterday I saw a few commentaries which I completely omitted in my last 20 years, this subject of women and men, a partnership. About 40 years ago, I have written a paper for an agency how to organize a meeting of possible future partners, men and women who would be invited for a meeting like that. Well, I do it philosophically. I have proposed that it has to be continuous, natural, spontaneous. There should be no explicit kind of talking or mentioning that it is supposed to find a partner. There should be an area where people, individuals who are devoted to some mastery in art or sport, or art or sport, muses and war, as was told pastime of the Greeks. So they would be there and they would offer workshops. They would simply not offer workshops. Again, it is too conceptual. They would simply practice their art or their sport, and everybody who would like to join can join them. There's a guy who plays table tennis. He can do it. He can do it nicely, beautifully. He can teach it. So you come there and you play. Then you go and eat a cake and listen to somebody who is playing on the flute, and you also were playing the flute as a child, so you try it. And so on and so endlessly, on and on. And people who are drawn into similar kind of performances or actions or hobbies would meet there. And the guy who is the instructor, the teacher, the trainer, would kind of serve as a conferencier, a kind of so that he would say, okay, you are quite good. So now play please together. I will correct you and I will advise you or so. And now after 5 minutes of correcting and advising, you would say, this is quite good. You continue here. And he would go on to some other table or to some other musical instrument. And these two who were drawn together by the mutual interest for a certain hobby would already be, like in school. They would be spontaneously talking and and I can assure you there is no way that is better than to feel an attraction to an opposite gender if you then when you see it in motion, the whole body, it's perfect. Because motion is fluidity and cannot be faked. Profiles on Facebook and etc. are always faked by necessity. Because even the one who represents himself, sees himself. This is and he wants to see himself in a certain way, so he makes himself, kind of ideal, which he would like to be. So there's a fake, and then there are the mistakes of interpretation and on the other side. So it's absolutely disastrous to meet somebody only, according to some profile on the media, on the mass media. I mean, all cities are great agglomeration So it would do well to develop such areas of fun, sport, and kind of pastime, pleasure time, where it would be coordinated like that. No loud music. I hate this. It's terrible today. As if the human race has died already, and the only way it can be shaped into awareness is a deep sound that goes like. It is to be heard everywhere when it is a free day or Saturday, and the young people go there and they talk with this background. Somewhere I have read a good analysis that it is a kind of deep rhythm activation of the lowest sexual chakra, so that it gives them a kind of feeling of being alive, being full of life power. But they ignore it and they talk nonsense nevertheless. So this would be a suggestion again, if you talk about the fluidity of phenomenal perception, contrasted to representation, the acts of representation in the media. And this is what I noticed yesterday by chance, coming onto this field of profiles and partnerships. And there seems to be a huge number of videos now where men and women voice their critique of the other sex, saying that they do not exist anymore. I mean, I remember a similar sentence. I mean, the desirable partners do not exist anymore, and I am disgusted with that. I will remain single. I remember a similar sentence in the early 90s at the university, where the female, what is called feminist movement, started to form strongly, very strongly, and there were lectures, and there was a sociology lecture where a lady sociologist was talking about the man, the type of man, the archetype of man that we have, we would like to have, which we have envisioned, and kind of multifaceted lover, father, somebody who has a good job and is sexually attractive and can take up children and can talk about interesting things and a lot of interesting friends and can take us to many society groups and so. This type of man did not materialize, kind of with critical view into the public, into the audience. So it is only natural that a mother in such a situation will use the security of the state to take care of her, because the ideal husband has not materialized. Then I asked for a comment and said, well, this is very true, but on the contrary also, the ideal girls or women that I have envisioned, or maybe some other men and boys have envisioned, didn't materialize also. So what we can do, we must also, as she said then, we have to delegate the social role, splitting of the social role of one partner on many. One will be the sexual lover, one will be the partner to talk about interesting things, one will be the stupid man supplying the money and working hard. And one will be a sociology student. With him, she can discuss all this as a scientific subject. So, but I felt, even now, that is the old phenomenological problem. The continuity of human experience has been destroyed by modern technology, by transport, weakness of the transport, by the, even at schools, teaching the subjects, and then 1 hour this, mathematics, then history, then biology, then social sciences, and jumping from one to the other. No continuity, natural continuity, not growing out of necessity. As the Buddhists have the apt image of the ape jumping from one branch to the other. Vimanya, the consciousness is, the analytical consciousness, the ego consciousness is jumping from one branch to the other like an ape. And true natural growth of even a relationship between men and women, boys and girls, is not possible in this way, because the soul fields cannot merge peacefully, durably, for a long time. That's why we all remember, the old guys who have lived in the 70s and 80s and have fallen in love in the 70s and the 80s, when there were no smartphones, there were no computers, and there were schools to which we were going, and we were seeing this beautiful girl there. And every day, and I was extremely lucky to find one like that, and she was even in the same classroom. And we were even then sitting, because we were sitting in pairs, benches for two, we were sitting together, and then it was the fashion of unisex clothing. We were wearing the same unisex clothing, all colors and trousers and jackets and so on. This was a paradise. And actually we were young. It was before the high school final examination. Oh, wow. This endless seeing her in every moment, and yet there was this distance because it was at school, so you could not touch her all the time. And I always have tended to, writing poetry, writing letters, making drawings. So she became a kind of, muse. And we absolutely didn't have any smartphones, any cameras, digital cameras or whatever. You see the young people today making always selfies. It's a narcissistic. Narcissus, Greek mythology, also makes a selfie in a natural way. He is looking into a pond and seeing his image. And seeing one's image is what? It's very, motivating, because you are you, and it feels to the exclusion of the old surroundings. The continuity of the surrounding disappears. Narcissus sees his image. He does not see the pond and the leaves and the trees and the forest around. Narcissus sees a narcissus. People who make selfies do not make then a kind of panorama. If they would at least make the same style panorama of the place, and then they would make it like a digital Photoshop or movie maker combination, the selfie and the panorama. No, they don't do that. Some girls have on their profiles 50 of the same photos with slightly different expression. Terrible. And now let's go to the perspective of the one who is looking into the mirror, who is making a selfie, who is narcissistic. This is a strange combination of detachment and enhancement of the ego. Very interesting, because you are making it, you are seeing it, you are seeing an image which is not a phenomenal image. That is not an image that is created by your own soul. It is a reflection on a mirrored surface. So it immediately also leads to a division between the seer and the seen, the subject and the object. And the interesting fact is that the object is actually you yourself. You are subject and object splits. That is the detachment. And you can evaluate yourself very sharply because you are the evaluator and the evaluated. And then you actually correct yourself by the way you should look and what you should put on, and maybe you do some fitness exercises and so that finally you achieve, and you have with some fake colors or whatever, you achieve the desired goal, how you should look like, and this immediately enhances very strongly your ego. So you have a discontinuity of perception that leads to detachment and the enhancement of the ego. Wow, this is not a good medicine. It is not a good perspective for meeting somebody whom you would deeply love. Because loving deeply is being attracted deeply to something else. Okay, so you have it. We conclude today with this looking backward, as always I do, and lectures like this, I don't know where they will move. They are spontaneous, because even here in the way of lecturing, talking to myself and the few listeners who can enjoy this, I don't like anymore to have an idea and then to present the idea supported by arguments and so on. I like to be surprised where the real feeling I have when I wake up and the real experiences I have had the day before or a few weeks around will voice themselves, will out of necessity press on my expressive faculty to be, voiced, to be brought from the depths of my soul to outside. And one criterion is that I feel attention when I wake up. Something must be said, something must be done. And in the warrior epoch of my life, it was immediately rushing up, taking a cold shower and breakfast, and running to the tennis field or to the lake and swimming and running and so on, or going to work. But as a bard, and when after a regime change of a 71 birthday cake, I don't feel that this would be the solution. And I see some of the exceptionally well-trained men who continue like this, nah? And it is also not good. They don't look satisfied. They don't look deeply in harmony. They run from one action to the other again and again and again until they collapse. So I feel this tension, but I feel also the media is the message. I have to find another media to dissolve this tension that something must be done. So I start, and I usually make a for some 20 minutes. I only go vocal and improvisation and instrumental, and try to voice the emotions I have in my deep soul field. And during this time, images are flashing, and the subject of the lecture is collecting passively. So then I saw this, my disgust of this analytical warrior competition tennis. Then I see those girls who are criticizing the men that they do not exist, that they should be, and vice versa. And then I see the representation program, smartphones, Narcissism, detachment, and ego enhancement. And so then I dive into it. And one associates the other. Also the reading, which I did, also one mode in which I can, on other days, it cannot be chosen, it must be done. Also, some other days I feel that I have to read the text, the philosophical text I already know, slowly. And it also feels as a kind of release of the tension inside when I suddenly find myself deep in the text, associating and drawing lines to similar meanings and variations of meaning, and that means that I read one page for 1 hour. That is the truth. And suddenly there comes the reading as if enlightenment. It's the text, the philosophical text, which is a prosa, is being read like a poem, upside down, from left to right, bottom up, and everything is then connected, and then there is a release. Similar as there is a release now when I have voiced the analogous several themes describing the importance of the fluidity, continuity of phenomenal perception, as opposed to separating acts of cognition and representation. Representation is in any case a cognitive act. It doubles the world. In actuality, there is only one phenomenal experience stream. So I say hello and goodbye at the same time because I didn't greet you in the beginning, and wish you a nice, fluid, continuous, phenomenal experience by whatever happens to draw you into its influence. I don't say whatever you do, because it would be an active act of doing, conscious performance. Acts of consciousness would be necessary. Whereas if you are being drawn into something that is already happening, then you will passively take part in it. And this would be the ideal moment of meeting a partner when she or he is doing something what you immensely love and admire, and there is no comment, no explanation. You simply join and take part, and he or she can teach you some special ability in this field of the music, dance, art, sport, working, farming, handcraft, dancing, whatever. And no commentary. And if you want to make it functional, because it seems to be a great dire problem for many who search for a partner, then you build such communal centers, and you even employ professionals, experts in some of these arts, and you let them to be an intermediary, so that the two that meet, because they are drawn together passively to some art or mastery or performance, or can be even handcraft or farming. And most difficult would be to be a reading of a philosophical text or a discussion, because it is really difficult. Can be done, and the intermediary then enables it that those two who are drawn together can stay in the continuous phenomenal experience of body and soul, and do not have to evaluate, do not have to comment, do not have to represent themselves. Okay? You see, I've already finished, and there came this last wave, because maybe it is really the one which is most important. The question of dying in this way is also important, but it does not motivate the young people. And we need the young people to save the world, as usual. The old can die in this beautiful way. The young can be introduced in this fluid, passive experience, and nature will be everywhere. This is ecological, or truly ecological, unsustainable life for the human race here and for the planet. Ahoy, ahoy. We have this greeting. Ahoy, use this greeting. The sailors. Ahoy, our ships are passing. We are moving. It is continuous, fluid. We go on. Adventures are awaiting both ships. They are passing each other for the short, fluid moment we see each other and call our home.